Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the Charles Dutoit How the Mighty Have Fallen edition. Now, this is no longer available. This box wasn't even available for that long, but I got it when it came out because I was just sort of like, I thought it would make a nice souvenir at some point in my life. Who knew that it would become a souvenir sooner rather than later, after Dutoit got in trouble for his sexual peccadillos. Now, I'm not passing any judgment on him for that stuff because I wasn't there. And, you know, in the classical music world, we all love to talk about this stuff. And it is fun, actually. I mean, who are we kidding? But especially because these people hold themselves out as, you know, people who are entitled to endless quantities of privilege, who can get away with anything. And when they don't, you know, there's a certain amount of schadenfreude. And, you know, what can I say? But this box came out, and it's now gone. And I want to talk about it anyway and just tell you what was in it as a reminder, because he did some wonderful work in Montreal. But the principal interest for me in this stuff is not the fact that Dutoit got his comeuppance, fairly recently. It's the fact, and he seems to be making a comeback, by the way, somewhere, somehow. We're not going into that. It's the fact that this was the last great push by a major label, one of those do whatever you want, record whatever you want, we're behind you 100%. Dutoit was supposed to be the successor in the Decca line of amazing artist and repertoire decisions to Schulte Chicago, and before that, Ansermet and Suisse Romande. And he was the modern Ansermet because he was going to remake all that French stuff that Ansermet did, but in digital sound. And he had the Montreal Symphony, which is very, very good orchestra. And they were recording in the church of Saint-Eustache in Montreal, which was supposed to be amazing sounding. Sometimes it was, and sometimes it was not. So I want to go through this, and we'll see what was great and what wasn't great. Like I said, there's 35 CDs here, and some rather interesting stuff. Now, hang on, let me get this. I think this is mostly original jacket stuff, so I could pull it all out and go through it. Yes, it is. I hope that what's on the actual disc is what's on the original jacket. You never know. You never know. But this is like souvenirs of a happier time in the record industry when, you know, artists were not getting arrested or accused of things, and labels were spending real money. I mean, serious money making recordings with proprietary artists. Really rather cool. So here we have Daphnis and Chloe. This was beautiful. It's a beautiful Daphnis and Chloe, a great recording of it, wonderfully recorded. It got us all very, very excited. Then he did more Ravel, and none of it was as good as this, quite frankly. It didn't sound as good, and the performances were rather swift, but to my mind, not terribly colorful or interesting. This is Bolero, Alborada, Rhapsody Espagnole, and La Valse. And, the orchestra had a nice, lean French sound and all that, but somehow these performances did not catch fire. And I'm not sure if Dutoit had much great Ravel in him aside from that Daphnis. I'm really not. Then we've got this Faya disc, the three-cornered hat, and El Amor Brujo with Huguette Tourangeau. It's very nice. It's a very pretty, nice album. Is it as good as the Ansermet? That's the question. Ansermet, who conducted the premiere of the three-cornered hat and recorded it several times. And his last recording was fabulous, and it's better than this one. But this is very good. Dutoit, as an interpreter, was kind of shallow. Maybe I hate to say it. Sometimes he was, sometimes he wasn't. But he was sort of swift, kind of a little bit cool, and wasn't the kind of guy who's going to get your juices flowing most of the time. Although he was exciting enough, if you know what I mean. I mean, he did good stuff, and he understood how to do, big splashy things. I saw a fabulous Damnation of Faust with the New York Phil and Berlioz's Requiem, things like that. He could do really well. Those recordings of those works were not special. I mean, at least the Berlioz Requiem certainly wasn't. So, Saint-Saëns, Symphony No. 3, horrible. Absolutely horrible. I barely recorded, and the organ is tiny sounding, and the balances are wrong, and the interpretation, like I said, is shallow. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just quick and nonchalant. I wonder sometimes what he really felt he was great at. and whether his recorded legacy reflects that. You do get the Chausson Symphony as a bonus on here now, and that's a good thing. That's a very nice performance. Then we've got the Ravel piano concertos with Pascal Roger. Nice performances. Everyone will have their favorites, but there's nothing to sneeze at here. And the Menuet Antique and Une barque sur l'océan and the fanfare pour l'Eventail de Jean, which is nice. They're nice performances. I like the concertos. Respighi, this was supposed to be the pulverizing blowout recording to end all pulverizing blowout recordings. It's very good. It's quite powerfully recorded. The tempo in Pines I find a little bit too fast for the final march. It needs to have more weight, more weight. But there's that moment when the organ pedal comes in, when the brass are going do-do, do-do, da-do, do-do, do-do, do-do. And you hear this throbbing. That is, you go, ooh. I remember when this disc came out, we were playing it for the organ pedal. We didn't want to really care about the rest of it. But there are more powerful Respighi records out there. And that's a fact. Then you've got the rest of the Ravel. You've got Mother Goose, not good. Especially the Fairy Garden at the end where he puts pauses between all the phrases and breaks up the music's flow. It's so irritating. And Le Tombeau de Couperin, which is just too fast at the beginning, and the Valse Noble. I find this to be a very shallow and uninteresting recording. And Rimsky-Korsakov, Scheherazade and Capriccio Espagnol, not bad. Not bad. The orchestra plays very, very well. One thing this orchestra has, it always has, and it had under Dutoit, is really good trombones, cutting trombones. They're not vulgar, but they really cut through the texture, and they do a wonderful job. It really helps in a work like Scheherazade, so that was nice. Then we have, French goodies that he did very well. You have Gaieté Parisienne and the Faust ballet music, and it's gay and it's Parisienne, and that's fine. Symphonie Fantastique, nothing special whatsoever. And he did some great Berlioz, but not this, or at least not on this recording. It's not terrible, but it's in no way... there's no feverishness in the finale. The march to the scaffold needs to be more evil sounding. The scene in the country could move a little more. It's a typical average Fantastique. And you get 3 overtures: Roman Carnival, The Corsair, and Franck Juge, and they're okay, but they're not special. Now we've got Stravinsky stuff. The Rite of Spring with the Symphonies of Wind Instruments. Absolutely nothing special. Good, decent Stravinsky, but no special ferocity or notable personality. Soupe Overtures. It's just nice to have any disc of Soupe Overtures. So I'm happy to have this. They're very well played and they're nice and delightful. Firebird. Let's see. Scherzo Fantastique and Fantastique, not Fantastique, and Feu d'Artifice, Fireworks. I find this Firebird to be also rather innocuous and a little bit dull. So, sue me. Not special enough. Certainly not like, Dorati and the LSO or Boulez with New York Phil or, any of those really hot, great, exciting ones. God knows, Dochnani in Vienna. Nope. Mussorgsky, Night on Bald Mountain, Khovanshchina, Russian Easter Overture, Pictures in an Exhibition. No. Absolutely not. Not happening. Not happening at all. I don't know why. It's supposed to be big and grand and splashy, and it just ain't. It's just not. Mendelssohn, Midsummer Night's Dream. Charming. Nicely done. This is the overture and incidental music, and then you get, without the vocal bits, and then you get the Hebrides and the fair Melusine and Roy Blas. A nice Mendelssohn disc. I cannot complain. The Planets. One of the great things he ever did. Absolutely first rate, exciting, and those trombones, they nail it. And he got all the color, and it may be because The Planets is not a piece that has any emotional depth. It's cold music. It's a rhythmic study more than anything else, and it suits the orchestra beautifully. It really does. This is one of the great Planets out there. It's phenomenal. Petrushka, this is the best of his 3 Stravinsky ballets. You also get a very good Le Chant de Rossignol and the 4 Etudes for Orchestra. This has all of that character that the other stuff did not have. It just didn't. Bizet, L'Arlésienne and Carmen suites. I don't think he cared. They play it well. It's efficient. It's professional. It's nice. It's not anything special. Fauré Requiem, Peleus and Mélisande suite in the Pavane. This is a wonderful collection. You've got Kiri Te Kanawa in the soprano, Cheryl Milnes baritone, and it's a very, very lovely performance with wonderful soloists. So no one talks about it, by the way. It's kind of interesting. Bartok, Concerto for Orchestra, Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celesta. He actually was good at this stuff. He really was. The music for strings, percussion, and celesta could have more ferocity. And, the opening fugue could be a little more swiftly flowing. You should have paid more attention, I think, to Bartok's timings. The only person who actually did was Reiner, but, that's why Reiner was Reiner. So that's a little bit disappointing. But the Concerto for Orchestra is quite good and really shows off the band to excellent effect. Then we've got Fête à la Française. Chabrier Ducasse, soprannist, more Chabrier, Espagne and stuff like that. Satie's two Gymnopédies, Sanson, the Bacchanal from Samson and Delilah, Bizet's Jeu d'Enfant, Ambrose Thomas, Raymond Overture, Raymond, and Ibert's Divertissement. So I love these collections. I like this collection. You can just put it on and let it go. And it's delicious. Now, his Debussy. We've got Debussy here, plenty of Debussy. We've got the Image and the Nocturnes and then La Mer, Jeu, all that stuff. It's completely uninteresting. It's not terrible. It's not great. It's just average, 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 average. The Franck Symphony, which doesn't interest me at all, though it's a decent performance. It's a nice middle-of-the-road performance, like so many of these things. But you do get the Dandy Symphony on a French mountain air, which nobody was touching when this was recorded. And he's got Jean-Yves Thibaudet playing the extremely difficult but wonderful piano part. And that, for me, is worth the disc. It's terrific. Then we've got, Swan Lake, all of it. This is a really good Swan Lake. Dutoit was a good ballet conductor. He got ballet stuff. And so to have... this is complete. It's luminously recorded. It's very, very beautiful. I have no issues with that at all. The same is true of his Nutcracker and Aurora's Wedding, which is a bit of Sleeping Beauty that was done separately by Diaghilev. And these are very good Tchaikovsky performances. They're delightful. So is this Ibert disc. You get Escale, the Flute Concerto, the Homage to Mozart, Paris Symphonic Suite, the Bacchanal, the Bostoniana, and the Louisville Concert. Wonderful. He should have done more unusual repertoire. He did unusual repertoire. He did the Honegger symphonies. He did the Roussel symphonies. He did that stuff for Irado with the French National Symphony or various French orchestras that weren't as good as Montreal. He should have done them for Decca in Montreal. That would have really sealed his legacy. He also did terrific Martineau. I saw some of it live, and after he left Montreal, there were rumors floating around that he had done a Martineau symphony cycle, and I wish he had, because I think that would have been really special. Now, this disc of Debussy stuff is more interesting than the usual stuff because it's more interesting or less popular repertoire. It's Printemps, the Boîte à Joujou, Children's Corner, and La Plus que Lente. It's a nice Debussy disc because it's not stuff that we hear a billion times. Bizet, Symphony at C, Overture, his premiere overture, edited by Antonio de Almeida, my good friend, the late conductor. The Scène Bohémienne from the Jolies Filles de Perth, Symphony in C, and Patrie. For the stuff besides the symphony, this is worth having because it's interesting repertoire, and the symphony's quite good. It's a nice, fresh performance of the symphony. Carmina Burana, with Beverly Hoch, Stanford Olson, and Mark Oswald, and a treble, the Face Treble Choir, and other people, and choruses and orchestras. It made no impression on me at all. I play it now, and I listen to it, I go, oh, okay, it's Carmina Burana. There are better ones out there, more exciting and more colorful, and it's decent, but it leaves nothing in the memory at all. Then we've got, Liszt, Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, Dvorak's Slavonic Rhapsody No. 3, Alfin, Swedish Rhapsody No. 1, Ionescu, Romanian Rhapsody No. 1. I saw him do that live. He does it very well. And Glazanov's Rhapsody Orientale, a wonderful disc of interesting tidbits, bonbons. He was a good bonboniste. And Tangazzo by Piazzolla. Everyone should do a Piazzolla disc. It's a Piazzolla disc. It's nice, it's stylish, it's pleasant. It's got Oblivion and the double concerto for bandoneon and guitar, and Tres Movimientos Tanguísticos Porteños. Yeah. And the Danza Criolla and Tangazzo and Milonga del Ángel. And I love Piazzolla. There are no bad Piazzolla records out there. And then finally, Mikis Theodorakis, recorded, it says, October 2000 and February 2004. Why? I don't know. But the Adagio for solo flute, string orchestra, and percussion, Zorba, Suite Ballet, Deuxième Partie, and Carnival, Suite Ballet. Not a lot of Theodorakis out there. So this is fun to have. There you go. So that's the Dutoit, How the Mighty Have Fallen edition. And, it's got some good stuff and some not so good stuff. And the best stuff is, as so often the case with so many artists today, not what they were famous or being pushed as expert at. Sometimes it's other stuff. I mean, the best thing I ever saw him do live was Shostakovich's Eighth Symphony. He did an absolutely tremendous performance of that, and I think he recorded it. I think it's not in here. There's a lot more that he did, of course, than is in this box. And so now the question becomes, will there ever be a complete Charles Dutoit edition on Decca? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Only time will tell. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.